Welcome to the Renekessan podcast with me, Wutsia Ostremska, Communications Manager at Renekessan. Renekessan is the Jewish voice for human rights and is named after the Jewish-French co-author of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Our mission is to promote and protect the universal rights of all people, drawing on Jewish experience and values. Renekessan works within the Jewish community by building support for Jewish values amongst British Jews, and in the wider community by bringing the authority of a Jewish perspective on issues that resonate with the Jewish experience. Since first starting to work on the Uyghur issue back in 2019, Renekessan has successfully spearheaded the UK's Jewish community into being the leading faith community speaking up and standing in solidarity with the Uyghurs. This was achieved through organising events, delivering actions, regularly raising the issue in the media and other platforms, engaging the community's spiritual and organisational leadership, our youth and the future leaders of the ordinary members of the community wanting to show the support. Today we're going to be talking about the Uyghur culture and especially Doppa Day. Today marks Uyghur Doppa Cultural Festival on May 5th, commonly referred to as Doppa Day, and is celebrated mainly by Uyghurs and other Turkic people originating from East Turkistan. The Doppa is a symbol of the unique Uyghur Turkic culture and national identity. The Doppa is a square skull cap originating in Central Asia, and today the Doppa is mainly worn by Uyghurs, Uzbeks, Tajiks. Among the people of East Turkistan, including Uyghurs, the Doppa is mainly worn on national holidays or special occasions like traditional weddings, funerals, and other social events. Until recently, it still had a prominent presence locally in remote villages across East Turkistan. Today there are over 250 different types of Doppa, and they come in different colours and unique patterns that often represent different regions of East Turkistan. As part of China's ongoing persecution of the Uyghurs, efforts to prevent cultural and religious practices are central to their experience, and for the detention of millions of Uyghurs in camps and surveillance of those living outside of the camps and in the diaspora. In response, Uyghurs in East Turkestan, and especially those in the global diaspora, have pushed back against the Chinese government's efforts to stamp out their culture and national identity by bringing back the wearing of the Doppa into fashion. It has now been widely used as a symbol of East Turkestani and Uyghur culture and national expression. And today I am joined by Dilnaz Kerim, and Dilnaz is a young Uyghur woman living in the UK. She was born in Norway in 2003, and in 2011 she and her family visited the Uyghur region. This was her first and last time in the region. While Dilnaz was 13, they moved to the UK. Dilnaz is a passionate advocate for her people and especially her efforts to help preserve Uyghur culture and language within the UK. So thank you so much for joining us, Dilnaz, and it's going to be really interesting hearing your insights into Uyghur culture. So let's just jump straight into the question. So can you give me a brief description and insight into the richness of Uyghur culture and tradition?
I mean, you pretty much described it really, really well. Uyghur culture is a very vibrant and rich culture. It's very colourful, just like the way the Doppa is. It has loads of colours, different kinds of geometric shapes that represents the nature, the culture. For example, we have the Glam Doppa, which has big roses on them. And we have some other Doppas as well with different kinds of flowers that represents the nature in specific regions. I mean, it's a unique heritage and it can be reflected in the language, the culture, customs, in many ways. Our customs, music, dance, literature, clothing, they each carry a story. They each give us a message. And it's an old culture and it was formed over time. But yeah, I would say that the Uyghur culture is a testament of resilience, creativity and heritage.
Is there one particular pattern or specific part of the culture that you like the most as well, or that you find most significant?
Currently, I'm enjoying embroidering the Kanvay patterns. Usually you will see them on clothing, like on the sleeves, on the chest. And In fact, I have opened a business called Kanvay, and it mainly focuses on different kinds of embroidery patterns within the Uyghur culture, but kind of modernize it and make it available for everyone. The main reason why I started this business was, first of all, I love to do embroidery stitches, and through this I wanted to promote the Uyghur culture, to showcase it, but also to preserve it.
And how do you think it's going to help with like other people, like non-Uyghur people, knowing about it and wearing it? How do you think that would make you feel, or is there anything specific that would bring about?
I mean, it would make me feel happy and proud to share my culture with others, but most importantly, them knowing the reasoning, the story, them understanding the culture is something beyond being proud. I would like to share my culture as much as possible, but in a correct way, meaning I want them to not just wear it as like a piece of fashion, but to understand where it comes from, the history behind it, which is why we are organizing events. We are planning to organize workshops as well, participate in different festivals, to really introduce the Uyghur culture and educate the public about the Uyghur culture and history.
That's great to hear, and do let me know when that comes out, because I'm sure me and very many of our listeners would also love to see that. So we will link some details in the description as well. So the next question is, how is being able to practice Uyghur culture currently being stopped by the Chinese Communist Party, and what impact is that having?
I mean, a lot of things have been happening in East Turkistan. Like you mentioned earlier, there are systematic oppressions happening there. They are bound to speak Uyghur language in schools. Right now, they've opened the border and they're promoting that. They're saying that they have a great life standards there, and that the Uyghurs there can freely practice the culture. But when you look at those videos of them posting, you can see that there are a lot of Chinese influence brought to our culture. For example, from the clothing, they dress up them in the Chinese culture clothing, but with the atlas pattern, for example. Or like when you look at the dance movements and compare them to Uyghur dance videos that were posted like 10 years ago, you can see some differences, and you can kind of relate it to like the Chinese dance movements. There have been some people visiting East Turkistan. I know one, I think his name is Enes. He lives in Germany and he's Turkish. And he mentioned that the children, for example, in the street, they just speak in Chinese. You can barely see Uyghur youth in certain cities, and it's mainly like the Chinese people who are promoting the Uyghur culture, wearing the cultural clothes. For example, the old Uyghur cultural essence is no longer there. It's something very different. It's just like loads of dolls just wearing traditional clothes and pretending like they're being happy, but you can feel it like they're not happy and that they're being forced to do some certain things there. So a lot of things have been happening there, but the Chinese government, of course, they will not stop, and they will continue to propagate and say that they're doing the best, and that the Uyghurs there are living the best life.
Yeah, and as also we've seen in other genocides as well, eradicating culture and traditions is part of a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really important for people to understand that that's part of this whole process, right? But I'm just wondering also, do you know if there's any way that people back in the Uyghur region are resisting that at all?
I'm not sure. I don't think that's really possible there, because they're being so oppressed there. They can't. I don't think they can really resist that. I mean, we've seen the history when every time people try to resist, every time people try to protect their own culture, their customs, even their basic human rights, they are like, it turns into a massacre, and there's a military force that suppresses the people there. For example, my father was affected by the Bal massacre, and he didn't even know about the massacre. He lived somewhere that was like 1,000+ kilometers away from where the massacre happened. But the reasoning behind that massacre is actually a group of people were protesting peacefully because they wanted them to stop forcing women to get abortion. So they were peacefully protesting, asking for their rights, but in return they were suppressed by forced military, and the youth across the whole country was affected by just one massacre. So, and this is just one of the massacres that happened in East Turkistan. There is Ulcha massacre, there is Urumqi massacre, there are massacres that happened before as well. And every time the Uyghur people there were suppressed no matter what, even if they did not have any relation with the protests, even if they didn't know about it, like my father, they were all suppressed and tortured. I don't think it's very possible to resist there.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well. And I know you live with your dad, right?
Yeah,
So he's here.
My father is here, he's okay, but he still has that scar. For example, he still has scars on his wrists, and it always reminds him of the massacre, of the time when he was imprisoned, him not being able to visit his own country for now over 3 decades, not being able to talk to his family. It's been over 7 years now. We don't even know if our relatives are alive or not. We have not spoken to them at all. We can't reach to them. So that all of that adds up, and also the news about the systematic oppression there, everything just adds up. And he tries to not show it to us, but you can see that he's suffering inside. And he's only one of the people who are suffering from the inside. Loads and loads of Uyghurs abroad, they have some kind of scars in their hearts, in their bodies, in their souls, and they try to not show it to the people around them, but you can see that they're not in peace. Their family, their loved ones are suffering there, and they're being reminded of them from the scars on the body, from the news they watch on TV, from the stories they hear. So,
yeah, definitely something that stays with you forever, really.
Yeah.
But is there a way that your dad relates back to his Uyghur culture, and his experience made him want to show it more, or anything like that at all?
He always talks about Uyghur culture, the Uyghur history. When we have dinner, we usually talk about the history. He loves to talk about our history, and it's something that makes him happy as well, because he knows that he's teaching his children about our people, our history, which is something very important. As a child who grew up in the exile, far from our homeland, not being able to see our relatives there or visit our home country, it's very difficult to stay connected to our culture. So he definitely makes the time to talk about our culture, our customs, our history. He tries his best to teach the language as well, which is why we started advocating. It's because of him, because of his stories. Of course, he tries to not talk about the negative side a lot, like the oppression that happened there, but he always talks about how great our culture is, which it is. It's very unique, it's very rich, it's very bold, and through his teachings, we learn that we have a responsibility for our people. And I mean, we may not be able to do big things, we may not be able to change the whole system, whatever, but we can do something for our people. Even if it's a small act, it goes towards it, it counts. And that's what he taught us. So it's through his teachings, which is why we are advocating for our people. So I think that's what makes him happy. Every time we wear our traditional clothing, you can see that he's happy. Like he's a person who doesn't show his expressions, but you can kind of see that.
I'm sure he's super proud of you, because I mean, I've seen all your advocating on like social media, the news, and everything. So I'm pretty sure he's so happy that you're showing and carrying that on. But yeah, I was also wondering, like, do you have a specific like story or an aspect of Uyghur culture that is your favourite, that you would be happy to share?
It's very difficult to choose.
Or your top couple?
I mean, I would say my most favourite part of the Uyghur culture is the gatherings, the mashups, because in a gathering you live the Uyghur culture. We show respect to our elders, we serving them first, we giving the best seat to them is a part of it. Them talking to us about their life experiences, giving us advice is part of the custom. Us wearing our cultural clothing, everyone wearing different kinds of Uyghur cultural clothing. One wears Doppa, another one wears Tumak, for example. Us sharing, our moments, from the clothing to food to dance, even the songs that they sing, each of them has a story. And if you listen to them carefully, it's about people's life, their lifestyle, their customs, their culture, for example. And from the songs alone, you can learn a lot. And when the elders talk about their life experience as well, that's another learning opportunity. So it kind of turns into school, but I would say, the best part of the Uyghur culture is the mashups.
Amazing. And how do you work to preserve the Uyghur culture here in the UK, especially?
Well, first of all, we try to promote as much as we can, teach our local communities about our culture, about our history. We are organizing, attending festivals organized by other organizations, but we are also planning to organize our own. It could be workshops, it could be coffee mornings, for example, it could be festivals, Uyghur nights. Come and join to get a taste of Uyghur culture. But we have loads of plans and projects that we are planning to do, hopefully. But yeah, the first step, I guess, for now is to promote as much as we can. When we're promoting, we're also educating our own people, our children specifically, because I know how it is to grow up in exile. Learning our own culture is like learning someone else, because we mainly spend our time in schools and we grew up in a different culture. So it's like when we're not learning our culture, we're learning someone else's culture. So sometimes it can feel hard for yours, but yeah, promoting, educating, and also we are organizing events within ourselves, gatherings, mashrabs.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways that we can preserve our culture, by constantly gathering together, by sharing our stories, speaking our language.
And within, you went to a Uyghur school as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we have a Uyghur school as well.
So how does that look like, and why do you think that's really important for you as well?
Uyghur school is a platform for children to be able to learn our own culture and history. So it's very important that Uyghurs, the Uyghur community, have a school. We spend 5 days of the week in schools and clubs, so we can at least spend one day in a week where we teach our own culture and heritage. It's not enough, but that's one of the ways we can teach the future generation our own heritage, so that they can also, when they grow up, advocate for their people, protect and promote their own culture, be proud of their culture, of their history. When we look back in their history, our ancestors have done such great things. They have invented so many things that now we are using them. For example, they've invented the first version of printer. They've invented papers. They've invented weapons. For example, they've invented those the protecting garments that soldiers wear. When you look back in the history, it was not the man only who was serving for the country. Women also took place. And there were women who ruled the empires, for example. There were women who ruled military. So women also held important parts at that time. And we need to teach this to the Uyghur children, because it's something to be proud of. When at that time women did not have the same equality as men, Uyghur women had that. They were not just housewives and sitting at home, but they also took part in serving for their country.
No, it's really great to hear, and very progressive at the time. And because I know you're very much involved in advocating for the Uyghur community, what do you personally think the government can do to support the Uyghur culture and Uyghur people?
There are loads that they can do. For example, fundings. We need fundings to be able to run the Uyghur school, to be able to organize events, to promote culture. There are political things that they can do. For example, they can impose targeted sanctions on Chinese officials and companies that are involved with the Uyghur oppression. They can encourage people to further research about the Uyghur issue, but also about Uyghur culture. They can support local Uyghur communities and also refugees. They can also support Uyghur-led organizations, businesses that is working on the Uyghur issue, but also promoting and preserving the Uyghur culture.
And yours being one of them as well. Yeah. And then also, what can everyday people do to protect the Uyghur culture as well?
There are a lot that regular people can do as well. For example, supporting local Uyghur businesses, purchasing their products, help to promote their products, attend any Uyghur events, festivals, invite their friends when attending these festivals, or even share. Social media is now a big part of our life, so through there they can also share information about Uyghur culture, Uyghur history. There are loads of posts and videos about Uyghur culture and the history. They can also support content creators who specifically work on preserving Uyghur culture. There are loads that they can do. Every small action counts, and there is no big, small, whatever you can do, just do it.
Great. I was just wondering if you could talk about maybe about Uyghur food and what that also, because I know that's also a massive part of Uyghur culture as well, and I'm sure our listeners would be interested to hear about.
Uyghur food for me is about being together. We serve Uyghur food mainly, for example, like the polo. We serve it in big plates and we all share it. For example, Uyghur polo is shared in big plates, and it's a moment where we share, where we are together. Uyghur mothers, they recite the prayers that they know was cooking because they want this food to be shifa for the children, or to be like something that heals them, something that makes them stronger. Uyghur food are flavorful. There are different flavors. You have spicy food, you have sour food, and it's just Uyghur food that's so rich. It's not just polo, labnan, and mata. There's so much more that even I don't know. Each region has its own unique flavors, its own unique dish. For example, from where I'm from, or from where my father is from, he's from Shayar also, and they are known for loving the pumpkin mata. It's a dumpling, big dumpling, steamed dumpling with meat and pumpkin, and it's also my favorite.
It sounds very nice.
Yeah. It's like a dish that is kind of unique to that area as well. They have soups with pumpkin in it. They have some dishes with pumpkin, and each region has its own unique flavors. It's just uncountable.
No, that sounds great, and dumplings obviously always a good favourite. Thank you so much for sharing your culture, and it's been really insightful to get the richness of what the Uyghur culture is, and I'm sure our listeners have been really interested in hearing that and learning even more about it. So there'll be links to some more readings about Uyghur culture in the link for this podcast, and also with actions that you can also take that Dilnaz mentioned. So yeah, once again, thank you so much, Dilnaz.
And
thank you. And join me next time for our next episode on Uyghur culture.